In years past, we've brought in speakers who have talked to you about attitude. They've talked to you about passion. They've talked to you about motivation. They've tried to give you mental ways to climb the mountain, to get to the top, to make your number. How many people in here have watched reality TV shows? That's good. You like it? Because we've got a reality speaker here today. We've got a guy who has an incredible background in recruiting, in selection, in retaining people. This is a guy that knows our business. He's here today to give you great insight into how do you maintain your best asset, which is your people. Mel Kleiman is the president of Humetrics. He's written this great book that's in front of you called Hire Tough, Manage Easy, which I personally think is an incredible book. And if you're a manager looking for a secret to how do I pick the right people, how do I ask the right questions, it's in that book. So I'd like everybody to give an incredibly passionate, warm welcome to Mr. Mel Kleiman.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Wow, great introduction. But you guys weren't passionate enough. You guys didn't have enough enthusiasm. You guys, I can talk for a long time if you want me to, and it'll depend on how good an enthusiastic welcome you give, how long I talk. Everybody stand up. Come on, everybody up. Now, I want you to know, I think everybody knows that right down the hall we're having an ExxonMobil meeting. I want them to think we're having more fun in here than they're having over there. So on the count of 3, I want you to applaud, clap, cheer. I really want to hear it. 1, 2, 3, go! Woo! Woo! Wow, okay, sit down. I got to tell you a little secret, and don't tell anybody, the rest of the group, that I told you this, but, I've been to the 2 presentations in Florida, and I was the presentation in Philadelphia, and they said, we got a fabulous group of managers. I think we probably got some of the best managers we've got up here in the Boston area, but they don't have the same kind of enthusiasm they do down there. They don't have the same kind of excitement. I got to tell you, you guys gave a better welcome than they did. You're really good. You really are. Don't let them tell you. Don't let them kid you. You got the passion and the enthusiasm. Let me ask you a question, though. How many people in this room have to hire people? Raise your hand if you have to hire people. I got everybody? Okay. How many people in this room have ever hired a turkey? Raise your hand. And how about a couple of you who are doing this? Yeah? You hired a turkey, right? And you hired that turkey, and I had somebody in a session say, you know why turkeys are so good at interviewing? I said, no. They said, well, they get a lot of practice. And they're so good at it because they walk out of someplace else. They walk down to you and you hire them. Why do you hire them? Because they got experience. Experience being turkeys. And by the way, guess what shift they usually want to work? 3rd. But you hire the turkey, and we've all done it. I've learned the hard way. I didn't get up here because I was a consultant. I got up here because I used to be in the car rental business. I used to be in the foreign business, been in lots of other businesses. I've hired my share of turkeys. I've done worse than turkeys, and later on I'm going to tell you, I've even hired the employee from hell. But if you hired a turkey, right, we've all hired them. And what do we do when we hire one? We say, well, God, they look good in the interview. They had all the right answers. They did everything right. And if I don't put them to work, I'm going to have to work their shift. I'm going to put them to work. So what do? We put them to work. And we attempt to train them. How many in this room have attempted to train a turkey? Raise your hand, right? We've all attempted to train them. And by the way, let me tell you something. Very bluntly, it is normally not a training problem. We are pretty good at identifying people who can do the job. We can hire people who can do the job. Only about 13% of the time is it a training problem. What it really is a motivation problem, right? We talk about, they're not motivated. They don't care. They don't believe in customer service. They're not friendly. They're not dependable. They're not reliable. They're not honest. So what do we attempt to do? Because we are great managers, otherwise you wouldn't be sitting here. We attempt to motivate them. I think everybody in this room has attempted to motivate the turkey, right? Anybody know what you have when you get done? Trained, motivated turkeys. And you better recognize that there are 3 things happening with turkeys and eagles today. Let me tell you number 1. Number 1, all the turkeys have learned to dress up and look like eagles. They really know how to interview. And in fact, in most cases, they don't be any good. Has anybody recently in this room had to hire somebody? Who's hired somebody? You've hired somebody recently? What did you hire recently, Alma?
What did I hire?
Yeah, what kind of person? What did you hire? What was the position?
It was for C shift.
It was for 3rd shift? What? 3rd shift. And somebody came in, they were good. They passed. They looked like they had a good personality. took a bath, took out, actually, right? They even, for the first time, combed their hair, looked neat, and you saw somebody who looked reliable. Did you, by the way, tell them what you wanted? Did you tell them she said, absolutely, I need somebody who is dependable?
And I trained them on the third shift myself.
Right? You need dependable, reliable, conscientious, willing to take care of the customer. How many of us have ever seen somebody really look good? They walk in, and what do we tell them? I need somebody dependable, reliable, conscientious, somebody who believes in customer service, somebody who is honest. How many have ever said that to an applicant? Right? And then what do? We ask them the important question. Now remember, what do I want? I want somebody dependable, reliable, conscientious, right, Diane? Tell me about yourself.
I'm manager at Norwich Test Station.
Yeah. Are you dependable?
Oh, yeah.
Are you reliable?
Yes.
Are you conscientious?
Yes.
Are you honest?
Yes.
Yeah, well, hire her. And by the way, she didn't even tell us. I asked her to make sure. Dependable, reliable. And by the way, can you communicate? Uh-huh. How many of us tell people what we want before we ever find out what they are? All the turkeys have literally learned to dress up and look like eagles. I had a son, goes to the University of Texas, has a roommate. I got to tell you a real quick story. Andy goes to the University of Texas, and he decides he wants to come to Houston for the summer and get a job. There's a group of restaurants in Houston called Pappas's. Great group of restaurants, make great money as tips. Andy wants to go to work for Pappas's. He says, I'm going to get there early. I'm going to come in the 1st of May. I'm going to go over and apply at Pappas's. So he comes into town, goes over to Pappas Seafood House, their original restaurant, walks in, fills out an application because Pappas is always looking for great help. They interview him. They use a structured interview. One of the questions they say is, Andy, where are you going to school? Andy goes to the University of Texas, and if you go to the University of Texas, you're proud of it. He says, I go to the University of Texas. They finish the interview, and they say, Andy, you are the kind of person we like. You have a great personality, great attitude. You'd be a great employee, but the problem is we're going to hire you. We're going to train you. And you know what's going to happen come August? You're going to quit and go back to school. We're not training people to work in Austin. Now, Andy's motivated. Andy's driven. Andy wants to go to work for Pappas's. He has to walk across the parking lot. Doesn't even have to get in his car. Walks across the parking lot to Pappasitas, their Mexican concept. Walks into Pappasitas, asks for an application, fills it out. What is the interviewing question? Where are you going to school? Let me tell you a secret. Andy's not too smart. Andy says, University of Texas at Austin. And you know what the answer is? We can't hire you, Andy. You're going to quit and go back to school. Motivated, driven. He wants to go to work for this company. He wants to be a part of a great organization. He drives down the freeway exactly 5.5 miles to Pappadeaux's, their Cajun concept. Fills out that application, and I bet you can tell me what the question is. Where are you going to school? Andy learned something when he was 3 years old because he lied to his mother one day. And his mother said, I can tell you're lying because you didn't look me in the eye. How many ever heard that line? Right? I can tell you're lying. You didn't look me in the eye. He remembered that. He looked that man directly in the eye. And he said, Houston Community College. Guess what they did? Hired him. Guess what happened August the 15th? He quit. He's a turkey. He had all the right answers. The other side of that coin is, you know what? Eagles don't always look like eagles. You know what? Eagles don't always look like eagles. Most of us hire people for what they look like. We hire people for what they know. We fire them from who they are. How many people in this room have, besides myself, and I have done it, how many people in this room have ever hired the employee from hell? How many still have the employee from hell working for you? You better not raise your hand. And hopefully you didn't leave the employee from hell at the store. But let me tell you what, I have an employee from hell. I told you I owned car rental. I used to own 9 Hertz car rental franchises. Let me tell you about my employee from hell. I bet my employee from hell beats your employee from hell. My employee from hell in one day totaled 9 cars. Anybody go out one day? Now let me tell you, I can identify my employee from hell in one word. If I hurt anybody's feelings in this room, I apologize. I can't help it. Let me identify this one. His name. His name was Ernie. I will never hire another Ernie again in my entire life. Ernies can't be any good. I have proof. I have new validated proof, and the people from Hess will be here. We've got it on video. I mean, this is not the first time it happened. I am telling my Ernie story. Just in Philadelphia last week, there's a lady sitting directly where you are. Betty, she breaks out laughing. I said, "What are you laughing about?" She said, "You are absolutely right about Ernie." I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "I was married to one." Now, I have to tell you, that is the third time that's happened. Don't marry an Ernie. Yeah, that's right. You know what? Some Ernies are very good, but what do? You know how long it takes most of us to make a decision whether we like somebody or not? It takes 14 seconds. In my case, if their name is Ernie, I say they're not good. There are great Ernies out there. I got to tell you, I tell my story, the head of the Food Marketing Institute, the person who's in charge of all training for the National Association of Grocery Stores, guess what his name is? Ernie. He's never going to hire me again. But Ernies can be good. Anybody, but we make a decision in 14 seconds whether we like somebody or not, and if we like them, what do? If we like, we're looking for reasons to hire them. And if we don't like them, what do? We look for reasons not to hire them. Reverse it. If you'd like somebody, ask them hard questions. Try and prove yourself wrong. If you don't like them, ask yourself easy questions. If you don't like them, ask them the easy question. Give them a chance to impress you. But we make a decision whether we like them or not in 14 seconds. So begin to look at, eagles don't always look like eagles. You know the third problem? You know what the government has done to every single turkey? And boy, you're in Massachusetts and you know it. You know what the government has done to every single turkey? They have put them on the endangered species list. Once you hire them, you are not allowed to shoot or get rid of them. You will own them for the rest of your life. And yet you have to remember that your most important job is making sure you identify whether you want to call them eagles or you want to call them A players. A year ago, I was doing this workshop. In this presentation, there was a gentleman sitting about the third row taking all kinds of notes. And this was a full-day workshop, and he's taking all kinds of notes. This is for a Fortune 500 company, one of the largest companies in the country. He is taking notes to everything I say. And I am impressed. He's asking great questions, doing great things. At one of the breaks, I go over and introduce myself and said, "Wow, it's great. I love having you in my class. You've asked interesting questions. It's great to have it." I said, "I don't know who you are, but what is your job here?" He looked at me and says, "I'm chairman of the board." I said, "Well, why are you spending the whole day here?" And he looked at me and says, "I only have one job." I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I only have one job. There are 17 divisions to this company. You know what my job is? My job is making sure I hire the right people. If I hire the right people, I don't have to do anything else." I got news for all of you. You know what your most important job is for everybody in this room? You can't do this job alone. If you want to make more money, if you want to have more sales, if you want to make the bonuses, you can't do it yourself. You know what your most important job is? Making sure you have A players on the bus. You got to make sure you got the A players on the bus. And by the way, he's got an advantage over it. You know what happens? Even if you get A players on the bus, you got lots of other jobs you still got to do. But how good are you at making sure you got A players on the bus? I want everybody to write these 3 words down. On the back of that handout, you got some space. I want you to write these 3 words down. You can write it anywhere you want to. Number 1, write the word recruiting. Number 2, write the word selection. Number 3, write the word retention. Recruiting, selection, retention. My first question to you is I want you to put a number. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being perfect, how good are you at your store in recruiting? How many of you have people lined up right now who want to go to work for you in your store? 1. How many of you know where your best applicants come from? How many of you know how to get the best applicants? How many of you could put a sign on every single one of your employees in your store and say, "Ask me about a great place to work"? And they wouldn't say down the street. How many of you know where you're going to go? How many of you could put a sign up that says, not now hiring? Because if now hiring signs worked, we would put a sign up that said, customers wanted. But how many of you can put a sign up that says, become pre-approved to work at Hess? Are you good enough to work here? On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you fall? Let me give you an example of somebody who I think is probably closest to a 10 of anybody out there in recruiting. They are, I think, the most unbelievable recruiting machine for hourly employees in the country today. How many people in this room have ever heard of Southwest Airlines? Good, most of you have. How many of you ever flown Southwest Airlines? A lot of you have. How many of you like flying Southwest Airlines? You like flying Southwest Airlines? You like flying Southwest Airlines? You're sick. Why would you like flying Southwest Airlines?
They treated me well.
What do you mean they treated you well?
They were friendly.
They were friendly.
The flight was on time.
The flight was on time.
It was cheap.
It was cheap. It's what, number one, is they're cheap. You know why they exceed your expectations? You don't have any. Linda, you're asking, those are fighting words. You got to tell me about it so I can take it under consideration. Doesn't matter if you ever had any problems. I need to know about them so I can take it under consideration. You understand that? Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm looking for, Jenny? What am I looking for?
Me to be honest.
You to be honest. How many people think Jenny came to the interview to tell me the truth? Would you raise your hand? We need a straight. I would like you to notice something. Jenny did not raise her hand. How many people think she came to the interview to tell me what I want to hear? Would you raise your hand? What did I just tell her I wanted to hear? What did I just do? I set the expectation. I expect you all to be winners. You will be winners. I expect you to cheer. You cheer. People live to expectation. And I expect her to be truthful. You know what happens 95% of the time now? I get the truth. If she lies, you know what happens? It's kind of like, should I tell the truth? Should I lie? Body language comes across. Then you ask the most important question, easiest question you ever asked. Jenny, would you tell everybody about the very first job you ever had you got paid for? The very first.
I was a babysitter.
Were you a babysitter? How old?
11.
11? You started young, didn't you?
One family.
One family every, tell me how you often, or what was it, weekends, or what was it?
No, it was after school.
After school? And more than one kid, or?
3 boys.
And you were 11, you had you had a total responsibility, or what?
Well, they lived right across the street. My mom was home, and there's 3 little boys across the street.
What were the most important things you learned at 11, babysitting for these 3 boys?
Responsibility, dependability, being able to, I don't know.
Responsibility, accountability, what else? Anything else? Anything else?
Value of money.
Oh, you like the money, huh? Give her a round of applause. You're terrific. Have an eagle. No, you get an eagle. How many people ask people about their last job? Doesn't matter. Everybody in this room, almost 98% of the people in this room had a job before they were 16. Who trains your people? Their parents did. Their parents trained your best people to be reliable, be dependable, be conscientious. Who trained you? If you took the job, you had to do it. If you said you're going to deliver the newspapers, you get up. I had one guy in my session one day. I said, what was your first job? He said, my first job was working in a Chinese restaurant. He wasn't Chinese. I said, how old were you? He said, 14. I said, what are the 3 things you learned? He said, number 1, you learn wet rice is heavy. He gets a job. He has a sense of humor. 2, he says, you'll learn to work hard. And 3, if you don't show up, you're going to lose your job. I said, do you like it? He said, no, I hated it. I said, how long did you do it? He said, I did it until I was 16, until I could get a real job. Every night he's washing dishes, but that's not a real job. I said, why'd you do it? He said, because my dad died when I was 13. I had a younger brother and sister, no insurance, and I had to help pay the bills. You want to hire him? I'm going to hire him. I got to tell you a secret about him. He now runs 14 restaurants. We hire people for who they are, not what they know. Your most important job is making sure you hire the right people. But as Dilbert says, hire the right people is 20% of it. 80% is teach them everything you know and let them do the job. Your industry will never be an industry of choice. How many people in this room grew up saying, I want to be a convenience store clerk? How many of you grew up saying, I want to be a convenience store associate? I want to be None of you. We didn't even want to be convenience store retailers. You are the greatest industry of opportunity out there. 110 people got promoted just out of these 2 divisions last year. 110. You know what that talks about? This company is going to grow with or without you. I will guarantee you, Rick is going to make his numbers. He's going to make them with or without you. You know what? If you want to grow, it's the greatest place to be. If you don't want to grow, it's a great place to be. Just do the job the best you possibly can. But your most important job is hiring the right people. In closing, I want you to do one thing. I want everybody to raise your right hand. I want you to stand up. Raise your right hand. Now raise it higher. That's what it's going to take. That's the effort that makes winners. You can do it. Thank you very much.